Well, welcome to the group. I'm so excited about the journey that we're about to take together as we walk through what is the most famous teaching of Jesus that we have recorded, called the Sermon on the Mount. We're going to be hanging out here for quite a while, and you're going to want to get familiar with its location in the Bible in the book of Matthew, chapter 5, 6, and 7. Now, this is something that I have been thinking about for a little over a year now, and finally decided that there's really no better time than right now to jump in on it. One of the main reasons that I believe it's essential for us to do this now is because I just believe it's time for us to really challenge ourselves to live in the ways of Jesus and truly follow him. And I think there's really no better way to do that than to know the words of Jesus. And truly, kind of piggybacking on vision and mission that we've done the last couple of weeks, if we really want our family and our neighbors and our friends to take Jesus seriously, it's going to start when you and I take Jesus seriously. Now, I'll be honest and say, I don't really know how long it's going to take us to get through these words of Jesus. He covers so many different things in this teaching, but his overall message is one of inviting people to see what it looks like to be in his kingdom. From his opening words, Jesus is casting a vision to say that things are not what you think, that his kingdom is open to all kinds of people that you never thought might be included in this new way to live. And this kingdom is entirely different than anything you could have imagined. The key to understanding the entire teaching is found in the opening words called the Beatitudes. It's a funny word, but the Beatitudes is those first few verses starting in chapter 5 and verse 3, goes all the way through verse 10. And we're going to hang out in this section for several weeks, which means that to get through the entire teaching, we will end up doing what I will refer to as a series of series. But here's the way it begins in Matthew's account, chapter 5, verse 1. It says, "When he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him, and then he began to teach them, saying." Now, I just want to stop there for a second, because one of the things that you need to know and keep in mind is that the Bible books were not written with chapter and verse divisions. Those were added much later by other people to help us as a point of reference in our use today. So what you read in verse 1 of chapter 5 is really just a continuation of what we find at the end of chapter 4. And if you look back there, you'll see that Jesus was attracting large crowds of people while he was teaching. And while he was teaching, he was also healing people in the crowd. And in the crowd, it included people who were suffering, people who had disease, people who were paralyzed. It basically reads like a list of people who were easily pushed to the side or commonly forgotten, or what we might consider to be on the outside looking in. And so you have this mixture of Jesus, his close and new disciples, alongside a large crowd of other people who have followed him to this point. And when he climbed up on the hillside, he sat down to teach them. Now, this is just a very traditional posture for teachers in the first century. A Christian author named Dallas Willard actually believes that when Jesus begins his teaching, and especially this first section that we're going to dive into, that he's essentially doing what he calls show and tell. That he could actually picture Jesus walking over to a person and perhaps put a hand on their shoulder, or he would grab someone by the hand and have them stand up, or he would point to someone in the crowd as he said these words. "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." And today we're really just focusing on that very first line that says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." With the very first sentence, Jesus blows up everything people would have thought of as a requirement to be a follower of Jesus and part of his kingdom. With the first sentence, heads were likely exploding. Now, I just think the word blessed is a funny word. And a lot of people will reduce it down to saying that it just means to be happy. But there's so much more involved with this word. Blessed means happy, sure. It means ultimate happiness. But it really includes the idea that you have God's favor in your life, that He has given you His stamp of approval, which turns everything entirely upside down, because Jesus said the blessed person is the one who is poor in spirit. Now, this goes against everything people believe, not just in our day, but also in Jesus' day. You see, much like we do today, they tended to break people down into the groups of those who have and those who have not. And if you have, and you're healthy, and you're wealthy, and life is good, then God must really like you. His blessing is on you. And if you fall into the group of the people that have not, and you're struggling, and you're a nobody, and you don't have a lot to offer, it must be because God doesn't like you. The poor in spirit, I believe, actually refers to a specific group of people that Jesus has in mind. You'd have to go back into the history books, and you can find this. Hundreds of years before Jesus, the Assyrian Empire took over the entire Middle East, including Israel. They wiped out everything, and they took people into slavery. If you're familiar with the Old Testament story of Daniel, Daniel's among the best and the brightest who's been taken into service of government officials. It was in the captivity of people that they were brought back to serve as slaves. In some ways, it was like lining up to choose teams in a PE class. The strong, the smart, and the beautiful were always taken first. It's the ones who we would say, hey, they're blessed. But not everyone was even brought back to serve as a slave. I mean, not even everyone was selected for the slave team. Even captors would look at some people and say, okay, not you, because you're worthless. I believe Jesus has these people in mind, a group called the Anawim. Literally, it means to throw people away. Like, these are the throwaway people. Hebrews, right, who were poor, lonely, vulnerable, they have no possessions, nothing to offer. In a time when people were sick and oppressed and downtrodden, that's how you defined them. The world's not set up in any way whatsoever to help people like this. And yet this particular group of people were counting on and trusting in God for absolutely everything that they needed. In the world, right, that can give us our very worst, they were believing in God for their very best. So when Jesus says, blessed are the poor in spirit, I think He's challenging all of us to look into the mirror and believe that there could possibly be a new day in the kingdom of Jesus. And the announcement is this, that you are approved by God. And you're approved by God when you fully realize your inadequacy. I mean, it's the opposite of everything we've believed that helps to create this good life. Right? All the things that we would say, being proud, self-sufficient, being strong, rich, and confident. Jesus turns it on its head to say, blessed are the spiritual zeros, the bankrupt, the deficient. Blessed are those who see their need and know their need and are trusting God to get them through. Jesus adds, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. I love how He speaks in present tense. It's not that you need to hold on and someday this will become a reality. He's saying that the kingdom of heaven is yours now, today. That it's a new day. There's a new way of doing things. And those who, from a human point of view, are most hopeless, there's a place for you. That God's favor can be on you. Welcome into the kingdom. Jesus is throwing open the door and saying that anyone can come in, and they still can. He just wants us to know from the very beginning that apart from His grace working in our lives in new ways, we're beyond hope. And there's only one qualification: to be at the end of your rope with nothing to offer, to drop your pride and empty yourself fully. And that, friends, is the first step that will lead you to living the good life. It's a new day in the kingdom of Jesus. I wish I could be there and hear the discussion that's about ready to take place in your group. So glad that you're a part of this as we journey together into the Sermon on the Mount.